Hello and welcome to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, presented by Coors Light. Go from full time to game time. Coors Light, made to chill. Make sure you find the Raptors Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review the show. I'm your host, William Liu. I'm joined by co-host Blake Murphy. Big thanks to Blake and Alex for holding it down, but more so to Blake, honestly, who put up 50 yesterday. What's going on, Blake? How did it feel to be in this chair? I was going to say the big chair, but we're literally on the same chair on the same level.
Yeah, it was a little, I likened it yesterday to like having to play left-handed. It did feel a little like weird being on that side, in addition to, as I mentioned to you earlier, like it's a little messier on that side. It's a little tidier over here. But it was good. I thought it was an okay show. I thought the stuff with Lindsay and Alex was really fun. We had Shams on, obviously. And then a lot of what Samson and I talked about with the limit, like we were positive about some of the steps the offense has taken this year as it grows little bit by little bit, but there are still some real limitations that better defensive teams are going to be equipped to turn the tap off on them. And a lot of those things came up in a very, very ugly loss to the Nets last night, 115-103, a game that was not a 12-point game. It was like a one-possession game until down the stretch when, I don't know. Do you want to start there? Like, the lack of composure, execution, and even effort to the final buzzer there is a pretty gross last 2-3 minutes for a Raptors team.
Yeah. When you say better suited defensive teams, you mean the 20th ranked Brooklyn Nets, who completely shut off what Toronto had. And listen,
I more meant tactically. Like, they have Claxton, who is big around the rim and a good shot blocker, but they also, like, they have a defensive strategy that is predicated on we will sell out to protect the paint with help. And if you get all the above the break threes in the world, we'll live with that. The Raptors shot okay last night, but they are not a good enough shooting team to make a team like the Nets or the Budenholzer Bucks, if you remember those teams. Those type of teams, the Raptors aren't equipped to beat by just getting crazy hot on top threes.
Yeah, it's going to happen very rarely. So yeah, let's talk about that game last night. Raptors lose, as you mentioned, to the Brooklyn Nets. Where do we start with this one? I
want to start with the end. I want to know what you felt about the last couple of minutes there, because obviously there were some like poor execution things. Maybe Gary shouldn't have taken that early clock runner at a weird angle, even though that's a pretty good shot. Like, you can get into some of that. But for me, it was more about there were a couple of really bad lapses in transition defense with the game on the line, which like those are inexcusable any point of the game, but like especially at that time in the game. And I just thought, for a team that has done so well to come back in games when they're down, a team that heading into this one had one of the best clutch net ratings in all of basketball. They had been one of the best teams in the league in those late and close scenarios. I thought it was a different team yesterday. I didn't think they had the composure or the energy. And I wonder how you felt watching it and then watching it back.
It was disappointing. And I'm going to be frank with you. I did not watch this one back because last night left such a bad taste in my mouth.
Good for your mentals. Yeah.
To me, it's the fact that, okay, so you had the double timeout from Darko, which is his new thing now, right? He did the same thing, I think, in the Cavs game, where the other team calls timeout. The Raptors
I should have done that on Saturday for team sport.
It wouldn't have mattered. But, you know, you come out of that, it was a 1-point game. At first, you had to decide who's going to close. So once again, he closes with Jakob Poeltl off the floor. Now, I get it. Yak was really causing spacing issues. But I also thought Yak played decent on both sides of the ball. Like, at least in terms of what Yak could control, I think he did a decent job of it.
And it was an interesting decision because shortly before that, they had gone to hack-a-clack in sending Claxton to the line. And it was early in the game situation to do that. But what they succeeded in was taking Claxton off the floor.
Yes.
But if you were going to respond to that, the Nets being then 5 out by taking Poeltl off the floor, who was having a good game, like, the net of that seems to be like, I think the Nets were fine with that. Yeah, they're comfortable with that. If we'll take Claxton off, Claxton is like our best defender. But if you're going to take Poeltl off, like, okay, we'll live with that.
Yeah, in a game where the Nets walk to the rim, you take off your rim protector, and I think that the only offense the Raptors got that looked at least somewhat okay in the half court was probably pick and roll. You take that threat off the floor. You close with Gary. Now I get it. Gary was hot. Or I wouldn't say hot. He had like 15 points, but like, you know, in relative terms, he was hot.
Yeah, on a night where like they barely averaged a point per possession, he could at least find the bottom of the bucket.
And then they got some semi-open looks down the stretch. I wouldn't say that like I think the looks were bad, but the Raptors just were missing all sorts of chippies around the basket. And then, as you mentioned, there was a couple of egregious instances of the team not running back. Like, there was one play where the Raptors missed it in the last minute, and the guys just didn't sprint back. And it's like, you could tell the guys on the court were, like, waving their arms, looking up, like, what are we doing? How come we're not back? And it's like, yeah, how come we're not back? Like, we're just going to – it's 18 games into the season. We don't have the energy to run back?
Yeah, against the team that, like, okay, throw out the in-season tournament because you don't care about keeping Boston out maybe or whatever. Yeah. But this is a team that coming into this game was half a game ahead of you in the standings, is in your division. You're likely fighting, if you still actually believe you could be a playoff team or a play-in team, you're fighting with them for position. You're going to see them 3 more times this year. Like, that should have been a game you were up for no matter how you slice it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the bigger picture is you are in the midst of this stretch where you're going to play a lot of 500-ish teams in your own division.
Yeah.
Right? We're going to see the Knicks later this weekend.
Twice in like 11 days, you're going to see the Knicks.
We're going to see, we've already seen Cleveland. We've already seen Brooklyn. Like, these are the teams that you really need to make an impact towards. I mean, the one win that they got in this recent stretch was against the Pacers. That was encouraging. That was by 1 possession. Buddy Hield had an open look, but they won that game. I'm going to give them full credit for that. But these are the games that you actually measure yourself up against. And I'm sorry, but not only do the Raptors look a little bit too much like the rest of them as like a 500 team, but in some of these games, they're just completely capitulating. And you're seeing repeatedly the same issues that come around. Pascal's 3 is just nowhere to be found. The bench is just not a positive no matter what. Precious, we're going to devote a whole 5 minutes to Precious.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
We're going to call an ISO for Precious like Precious calls an ISO for Precious. And we're going to go into those things. But the ceiling of this group just doesn't look to be anything better than what it is. And I think, to me, the most discouraging part last night was they had lots of moments where they became disconnected. Selfish play, guys going one-on-one, guys going 1-on-4, guys taking back-to-back shots that were not there for them. And, I hate to say it, bad body language as well. So it all amounted to a very winnable game that they dropped.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones, too, where it almost feels like double hurtful that you lost a winnable game because, like you said, so much didn't go well, or they didn't do well. They shot poorly at the free throw line again. They shot okay on threes, but given how open the diet of top threes was, you probably hope you hit, 40% of those instead of 35% of those. They shot 11 for 26 at the rim. Yep. 11 for 26 at the rim.
Yep.
And despite all of that, it was a 2-point game with 5 minutes to go. So I think at that point in the game, you are probably feeling like, it's crazy that we're in this. Like, we could steal this one. We haven't played well, but we can get away with that. And then to not only not steal it, but to give up 21 points in the final 5 minutes when you're a team that's supposed to hang its hat on defense. And, like, if you're down 2 with 5 minutes left and you're this version of the Toronto Raptors, the idea is not to win those last 5 minutes 23-21. It's to win those last 5 minutes like 11-9.
Yeah. You win by 2. You actually would have won that stretch. But, to me, I think defensively, you needed to see more down the stretch discipline-wise. Like, how many times did the Raptors bite at a Royce O'Neal pump fake?
Yeah, the sidestep 3 that he would just hit, or even in the corner, not even a sidestep, just pump and, like, look at you as you fly by.
Yeah, what happened? I thought Dennis has done a really good job generally this year.
He's defense. He's a tremendous closeout guy. He had another one at the top. And I don't think that one was Royce O'Neal. Maybe that was a Dinwiddie one, and Dinwiddie like pump and then probed and kicked. But I remember he had a really bad one late, and it's actually something that I've like wanted to, not on our show, but grab time with him, because if you remember before, when I was like on the beat, I would do this annual thing of like where I sit down with a guy and talk about something they're a specialist at. So like Matt Thomas getting open off the ball, Danny Green's transition defense because he was so good at it for so many years. This year I thought the one I want to do is like Dennis Schroeder closeouts. Like, let's go deep on closeouts and figure it out. Yeah. But yeah, there were some bad ones yesterday. It wasn't specific to him, but like, it was a pretty team wide thing.
Even OG giving up and ones to
OG had a curious night. Like he's better than that defensively, and I would have thought against Mikal Bridges of all people, who like they were compared to each other so much, and then Bridges takes this huge leap. Like, I don't believe that all of the reporting about like OG wants a bigger role, OG thinks he can be more of a playmaker, et cetera, are accurate and certainly not as aggressive as they've been reported. But if he did believe that, Bridges is the example he would point to and be this guy got out of Phoenix, got all those touches, and now he's a 24-point-a-game guy who can, like, maybe not be your number one on a championship team offensively, but like a really, really, like, he can be the number one on this team. That's 500, and that's the example. I thought he would have been really up for the Bridges assignment.
Yeah, well, I you know, it's funny because I actually, when we interviewed OG on Media Day, OG came to sit with me, and one of the questions I had for him was about this very idea. Mikal Bridges went on the Paul George podcast, and Paul George was asking him, like, because Paul George back in the day was similar, right? A guy who was kind of 3-and-D and then given a big role, and then I think Danny Granger left the team, and then he really, really made that jump into becoming a star.
Yeah, year 4 was the first year that he was like a 20-point-a-game. He was an all-star in year 3, but he was like 17, 7, and 4 kind of all-star.
Yeah, but he made that jump from being an elite 3-and-D guy to being just an elite player, period. And he was asking Mikal Bridges, who is maybe in the process of making it. I wouldn't say that Mikal Bridges is on the level of Paul George, but regardless, still kind of the same idea, 3-and-D guy making that jump. And he was asking Mikal Bridges, who do you think in the league can make this jump? And Mikal Bridges specifically said OG. And it was like, it wasn't like he was prompted to say OG. It was he identified OG. So I asked OG about the same idea. Whatever, OG wasn't going to tell me everything about, like, yes, I believe this and I got to move here and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, he definitely has that confidence in himself. And listen, like, whether that offense makes that jump or not, I'm more skeptical in terms of his own self-created offense, especially watching this game and even the Cleveland game, where I thought both games he was too disappointing for me on offense. But defensively, what he did against Cleveland was amazing. Like, Donovan Mitchell got so frustrated that he literally took a technical in a close game in the fourth quarter just because OG was all over him.
And on a play where, like, it was not a foul when you watch it back.
Yeah, exactly. And you look at this game, Mikal Bridges had 16 points in the paint. The Brooklyn Nets last night won the game in the paint. They outscored the Raptors 50 to, I think, 34 in the paint. And who led the Nets in paint scoring? It was Mikal Bridges getting guarded by OG.
He only hit 1 3.
Yeah.
On his way to, what, 22 points? Yeah.
Yeah. It was all him getting downhill. And I'm thinking, like, look, OG, of all things, like, to kill the Raptors, I wouldn't expect it for your matchup to be killing the Raptors. So I guess my overall point is just everyone looked really out of character last night.
Yeah,
I know them to be.
I think that's a pretty accurate way to sum it up. OG defensively, you know, Pascal had a bit of a stretch where he looked good after he clanked the first couple threes. Then he got it going a little bit, but he never got it back. In the second
half, I don't remember very many Pascal plays.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Jakob was solid, but I don't think, like, Jakob's ceiling is not win you a game kind of thing, right? It's just fill in. Dennis had I was very surprised at some of these scorers tables decisions with him ending up with 9 assists. I think that was maybe closer to 5 in what I would classify as an assist. But like there was one in transition that Jakob got where, like, he passed it to Siakam. Siakam took 3 like full stride dribbles and Euro'd. And Jakob still got the assist.
Yeah. That was the one where he stole the ball and then pushed the break. Yeah. I kind of wish Yak took it all the way.
Yeah.
I just want to see what happens.
Anyway, that's to say, like, I know Dennis also, he banged his knee pretty badly.
Yes.
And he did come back into the game in the fourth quarter, but he had it heavily wrapped. So he obviously wasn't feeling 100% down the stretch either. But you go down the list and, like, Boucher's the only guy I think that you would say had a good game by their standards.
By their standards, yeah, I would agree. And that's the thing. Boucher is kind of just like, who's the Blue Jays where it's like you're in a blowout and you bring in a guy to eat some innings, you know?
Yeah, like a mop-up guy.
Yeah, he's like that. He's like, oh, man, I don't want to embarrass my Blue
Bowden
Jays.
Francis.
Who is that? Never mind.
He was the guy they would bring in for like 3 innings. He got a save this year by, like, they were up by like 10 runs and they're like, just go pitch the rest of the game.
Got you.
And yeah, so we don't have to use our other relievers.
Yeah, I guess my point is, like, Chris, even at the start of the season, it was like, okay, Jalen McDaniels is going to play. Jalen McDaniels is going to play. And then McDaniels struggled for a while. Then Chris came into the rotation, did a decent job. Then Chris fell out the rotation because, honestly, wasn't really playing that great sustainably. Did he have his moments? For sure. Like the Washington game, the comeback, he was great. But then he started fading off a little bit. Yesterday's game, Precious really struggles, and Darko decides to put Chris in. Let's start with the positives at least. What did you like from Chris's game? And then we'll move on to Precious.
I just thought Chris did Chris things. And I think, like, some of where he struggled this year is more of a, like, fit in those bench units things. Like, like him and McDaniels and Achua have spent time on the floor together, and they all have similar weaknesses. And I think that those just compound a little bit. Like, I don't think you know, like obviously you're not going to build your rotation around what Chris Boucher does well off the bench, but we know he's better in those kind of more chaos-oriented bench units that are running in transition a lot. He has a really good nose for the ball on like scramble plays, certainly a good nose for the rim in transition and early in possessions, where you probably need a point guard to find him, or at least guys who are capable transition passers. And I think just, you know, him... I guess McDaniels technically guards the most wing-oriented of the three players when they're on the floor. But, like, I don't think that, you know, Chris is best off defensively when he can kind of sag off the weak corner, try to block a shot, do his crazy closeouts that, you know, he's consistently among the league leaders in block threes, even if you miss on them sometimes. And I just think when he has a night where he's not as effective as last night. And I thought last night most of what made him effective was just the energy stuff that he brings. Like running hard in transition, being around the offensive glass for dump offs or for offensive rebounds. He went to the line a couple of times. Oh, no, he didn't last night. But he was around the rim a couple of times anyway. He did have an offensive rebound. And then, I mean, the threes are kind of just like gravy when he hits them.
I mean,
you don't expect him to go
45% from three. And of course, he's only taking 2 a game.
Yeah.
But 45 is pretty good.
If that's like 37% by the end of the year, that's a big win for you because he's always going to be left open. But I think it's more that the nights that Boucher has looked bad and those bench units have looked bad, it's like, well, okay, Boucher can't really put it on the floor and engage in those DHOs because the handle isn't there and he doesn't really hit the screen hard enough. But also, Precious has not been very good in those situations.
We'll get to Precious.
He keeps the ball too much, and like, you know, my joke the other day about 0.5 offense to him means the 5 is the point. And he's going to run things. And then like McDaniels just like hasn't found his place yet. So when you're trying to work all of those guys in, it's just a lot of compounding. Like, hey, you could get by with Boucher's limitations if this was the line. You could handle Precious if this was going on around him. And I just don't think, you know, throwing more of those guys at the problem is, and it's why I think, you know, when this rotation looks good, probably only 2 of those 3 are going to be in the rotation. Now, again, mostly what Boucher did was bring energy and knock down the open threes. Let's do the Precious side of this, though. Precious only played 10 minutes. He got yanked in the first half. Yes, because he had 3 fouls, but also if he didn't have 3 fouls, I think it was time to get him out of that game. He finishes the game with a single point. He misses all four field goal attempts, 1 of 4 at the free throw line. Some very questionable decisions with the ball. Invisible defensively. Man, we've seen a lot of good from Precious at times. I would have thought by year 4 we're done with this kind of night.
I mean, I think this is clearly the worst Precious has played as a Raptor.
Yeah,
like
but I'm saying like the floor should not still be this low in year 4.
I agree. The floor should not be this low, but I think you have to know what parts of your game are going to comprise of that floor, right? I mean, it should, for Precious, it should start with rebounding and defense. I know it's not the sexiest thing. It's probably not if you went up to Precious and say, "Hey, I got this role for you. I want you to rebound and basically." Have you seen Bismack Biyombo? Like, can we show you some Bismack Biyombo? He would not be happy with that, right?
Biz is still getting paid.
Biz is still getting paid.
Starting center in the league right now.
He's one of the vice presidents of the union. All right, him and Garrett Temple probably have each other's numbers.
Also, he's got to be like the first guy since like they made the Keith Van Horn CBA rule 3 CBAs ago to get signed in season as like an emergency fill-in and get $5 million instead of the minimum.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, listen, he deserves a lot of that money for doing what he can in Memphis. But my point is that you need to know yourself to even have that floor. And when Precious comes into the game, there needs to be some guarantees. Just like with every single player that hits the floor, there needs to be some guarantees. Right? With Chris, it's a great example of that. I know the guarantee with Chris is he's going to hustle. He is going to run the floor really hard. And you know what? Sometimes he might be a little over-aggressive offensively, but at least, he has shown that he can be an effective finisher offensively in the last 4 or 5 years, especially with the Raptors. And, he can block a shot here or there. Like there are certain things that are going to be guarantees. Gary's going to come off the bench. It is not a guarantee he's going to make the shots, but he will take open threes. He will look to attack, and he won't pass the ball. Like, those are guarantees. I don't know what is Precious's guarantee when he comes on the court. And that's why there's no floor.
Yeah.
There's not a guarantee that he's going to play defense that night. It's not a guarantee he's going to rebound that night.
Which is tough because, as I've said on this show before, I'll live with some of the goofy offensive stuff if he defends at the level he's capable of.
Right.
And
he set himself up. He said, I could be a top 5 defender in his league.
He didn't say
not a top 5 defender on the team right now.
He said, I'm one of the best defending 1 through 5. He didn't even say I could be. He said this like present tense.
Yeah.
And
he got back up by Day'Ron Sharpe. How do you get back up by a center? Like, Day'Ron Sharpe was literally, okay, to take people back to last night's game, which I know no one really wants to, but it's important in this case. He comes into the game, first possession, he's either switched or guarding Bridges. Bridges drives past him, gets baseline, and he commits the foul. All right, whatever. Bridges was having a great game yesterday. He drove past OG, so it's like I can't necessarily blame Precious for that. A minute later, the Nets inbound the ball to Day'Ron Sharpe at the top. Day'Ron gets the ball out, and Precious is literally just looking around. Day'Ron Sharpe, literally the biggest man on the floor, runs from behind him at the 3-point line all the way to the basket for a cut, and Precious has to commit the foul because he's late. It's like you've been in the game for 2 minutes and you've given up 2 fouls. Like, the floor cannot be that low, but it just is. It's to the point where I'm like, honestly, if I didn't have to cover the Raptors, I would change the channel every time Precious came in the game. I'm sorry, I would not recommend anyone to change the channel from Sportsnet. Maybe watch a different Sportsnet network. Like, watch some hockey when Precious is in the game. No, it makes me like I'm so upset when I see him right now, man. I'm sorry.
And it's tough because, like, of these bench guys, he has the highest ceiling in that group. So, like, they're going to continue to give him chances.
Yeah, but the floor is this.
I know. And I don't think he's going to fall out of the rotation. And if he does, it would only be for like a game or two.
Okay.
Because, like, the upside with him is like this versatile, switchy forward/center hybrid who isn't awesome offensively, but does enough. And
this is every Masai player.
Like,
sorry.
Boucher.
Go ahead.
I love Chris Boucher. And I actually think like as the Raptors head toward February here, one of the things we'll start to talk about is like Chris Boucher with his style of play and the fact that he's better around better players. He's going to be a good bench big for a competitive team if the Raptors take a look at that. He is a little miscast in a four guy bench units with this team, but even still, the upside is not as high as Precious. He's not that guy defensively. I don't think has the like pump fake an attack or attack a closeout verve that Precious has shown flashes of.
Yeah, sure.
McDaniels, I don't know. I don't know what to think of McDaniels. I liked him before he got here.
I remember, yeah.
I don't really know what's happened here.
I don't feel like he's been in the mix at all. Like, you don't even see him around the team. I mean, not saying that he's not there. He's obviously there. I just mean like he's not as talked about. He's not as involved. You just don't notice him as much.
Yeah. And then there's Otto, who like obviously doesn't have a crazy ceiling. He's the floor stabilizer if you use him. But they're obviously not going to do that much. So I think Precious is going to continue to get opportunities. And I don't know if I'm in Precious's camp, I know it's not as simple as like tell a guy don't have games that bad, because if it was that easy, like the Raptors would be 82-0. We'd just go in there every game and be like, hey, everyone play well.
Yeah.
They'd win every game. But like you're headed to restricted free agency. This is a huge season for you. And already at some point this year, whether it was because there weren't negotiations or they were far apart on a deal or whatever, the Raptors have implicitly said, Precious, we're not willing to talk about a contract for you that you think you're worth.
Yeah.
And so far this season, the Raptors look smart in doing that, because I think he's closer to the Zeke Naji end of things than he is the Onyeka Okongwu when we're talking about bigs who got those rookie scale extensions.
That's why I was a little disappointed the Raptors just didn't lock into an extension. But then when we got Grange in here and Grange explained it, it's like Precious was not coming anywhere close to signing a deal like that. So if it's going to be a bet on yourself kind of season, I mean, the season right now, he's at 6.7 points per game, 43% from the field as a center, 43 from the field as a center, 23% from three. He's not really hitting his free throws at 52. I guess that's a team-wide problem. But last year, at least, was encouraging for him. He was over 70% last year. He's down to 52. He's not really rebounding the ball. Yeah, the assists are up because the system is different, but I wouldn't really necessarily say his decision-making is better. And so, look, this is the third year he's been in Toronto's system. We've seen some good moments from Precious. I still think back to March and April of 2022 for Precious. That feels like a fever dream now. When he was coming down the floor and pulling up for three in Joel Embiid's eye. That was when I really bought into Precious as a prospect. I know last year was up and down, but I'm willing to excuse a lot of what happened last year. It's just under a new coach and a new system, whether it's because he's been in and out of injuries, whatever. But I mean, look, Darko benched them yesterday essentially twice.
Yeah.
He even gave him that grace to play a second opportunity in this game. That's what player development looks like. But
that's the fewest minutes.
You got to give something back to the coach, man.
That's
he
the
literally
fewest
did
minutes
nothing
he's
good.
played in a game this season.
Yeah. Well,
Like, that's the shortest hook.
If we were talking about this, if you didn't play the 10 minutes last night and you just replace those with just Otto or just Chris, I think the Raptors win the game. And I probably wouldn't feel the most ecstatic about it.
Yeah.
Probably come in here questioning why we're not developing Precious, but it's been so disappointing. Like, it really has been so disappointing to watch him.
Yeah, it's been unfortunate. They lost those minutes, although there was just weird rotation stuff. I know we only have a couple minutes before we get to the next segment, but I think it is worth noting that some of the rotation stuff you and I kicked around on Monday, and over the course of the season so far, Darko did change it up yesterday. There was not a single instance where 4 bench players were on the floor together. Jakob and Dennis saw minutes with 3 bench players.
Yes.
So that Scotty didn't get hung out in a Scotty +4. There was another tweak where in the second half, OG was the first sub out, not Scotty, just to get a little bit of a different look. See those 4 starters with Gary in and Scotty also on the floor. Obviously, we're not going to draw any conclusions from small samples of those. But in a game that they lost by 12 points, they had the one really bad bench shift. And then once again, the starters got outscored as a 5-man unit. They are barely above even on the season now as a starting unit, which can't really happen either. But yeah, I thought it was notable that they tried some different stuff. Some of the weaknesses that have been a little more glaring in those transitional units, they at least tried to address it, and they were rewarded for that by almost everyone playing poorly.
Look, listen, I appreciate that. And I've been thinking more about we want to get OG and Scotty together for the second unit. Yeah. Part of the thing is, Darko's probably also thinking, well, I want OG on the floor as long as the opposing wing is on the floor. So I can't just take OG out willy-nilly and just match up his minutes. So I think what that really speaks to overall is just a talent issue. The fact that you have no substitutes who can come in and even do half of what OG does.
Well, and
you have no bench guy that comes in, it's just like, I want to hit threes like OG. I have no bench guy that's coming in, I'm going to play defense like OG. Then what is your bench there for?
Right. The threes would be Gary Trent, but you're not trusting him on anyone defensively. The defense would theoretically be McDaniels, but he's not he hit his 3 yesterday, but like historically he's not much of a shooter, and he just like hasn't found his groove yet. And then if you were going to be like, well, just change your substitution patterns so someone else is on the floor when OG hits a bench, the guy you would pick next up for the defensive purpose is Scotty, who you're also trying to get in with those heavier bench units, because my guess is like those Dennis, Yak, and 3 bench guys units, they'll survive because the Dennis Yak pick and roll is like
his own thing.
That's enough for a bench unit, right? Like you can orbit around that. I don't know that they'll be as strong defensively as the like Scotty and OG and bench units are or whatever, but I think it's worth seeing more of. It's like, we know what the Scotty and 4 bench guys looks like now. You can go back to that. You'll want to continue to get Scotty some reps in that, but let's see what a different rotation pattern looks like. Let's see if you can optimize that Pascal, Scotty, OG trio a little bit more by not always having them with 2 non-spacers on the floor. See it a little bit, and then see if you can get something out of Dennis, Jakob, and the bench, just to see if different combinations work. Because we know, we have 17 games before last night of data saying hey, this is sinking Scotty, asking him to carry these 4 guys at a time.
Yeah, last thing, we have 2 minutes left, but what did you make of Scotty yesterday? I just felt like he wasn't like very engaged in the first half. And I know this always becomes a big discussion, but I think anyone who saw the first 2 weeks of the season when he really started great, my thing that I kept going back to was I love the threes, I love the jumpers, I love how, he's blocking shots and stealing the ball all the time. But my biggest thing was I loved how engaged he was. Like, it was a force, it was a presence. You saw him everywhere. He was driving the team forward. And the start of the game yesterday, the first half, to me was just like, wow, I did not recognize that Scotty.
No, he only had 2 attempts in the paint in the entire first half, and both of them were plays. They got classified as blocks, but they're like those Fred VanVleet blocks where you're going up, and we don't even know if it's a shot or you're going to try to make a jump pass or whatever, but you get stripped on the way up. Those were his only 2 paint attempts in the first half. So I thought this was definitely true in the first half. The second half, by the time he kind of kicked it into that gear, I wonder if he was just like a little snake bitten on the night. Like, he shot 2 of 7 at the rim in the second half.
Okay.
That's like that's not going to happen. He's too good a finisher and he's too strong.
I agree.
A couple of those just rimmed out. So I thought the process was at least a little bit better.
Second half was better for sure.
But and he was guilty in the first half of getting back cut a couple times or being up too high at the level of the ball handler when the guy that we thought was going to screen has already broke to the net. But he wasn't the culprit on those breakdowns late in the game. I don't think.
No, he wasn't.
So I thought he he found it a little bit more in the second half process-wise. It just, on a night you're 2 of 9 at the rim, I don't really know what to do with that other than, like, it was probably an unlucky night because, like, more often than not, he's going to go 6 for 9 on that diet of shots.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's almost like it's similar to last year again, where it's like there's almost 2 versions of Scotty. There's like small ball 5 Scotty with the second unit. And I think you can run more of those when you have more shooters like OG paired with them.
Yeah.
Like we saw yesterday. And then in the starting lineup, I don't really know. He's starting to feel like he's not really as featured in the starting lineup again as well.
I mean, the usage rate would back that up. His usage rate does spike as you'd expect when, Pascal or Dennis are not on the floor. And that's true for Pascal and Dennis as well. When the other, like, obviously, if there are 3 of them who are like 22 to 25% usage guys, when you're sharing the floor together, that's going to come down a little bit. But I think they could make a more concerted effort to feature him early on, especially because, like, I don't know, when he's going, it's just like he really does feel like such a tough challenge for a defense because he has the shot now. He can be physical going to the rim. He's a good passer. Like the fully on version of Scotty we've seen glimpses of this year is like a really interesting problem for defenses. And if you can get that going a little bit earlier, because it's been a lot of like fourth quarter takeovers for Scotty when he does find that.
For sure. Okay, yeah, tough game last night, but we are fortunate that we can talk about other subjects. So we will change the subject just a little bit after we take this break. So I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Welcome back to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Willow. As promised, a change in subject because I don't want to talk Raptors-Nets anymore. You need that. You just got 30 minutes and you got the React Pod from yesterday. For this segment, we are joined by Clement Chu and Dennis Chang in studio. So the Chinese-Canadian Youth Athletic Association, CCYAA, has partnered with sports nostalgia company Mitchell & Ness for the 4th year in a row to design the limited edition apparel that celebrates the North American Asian diaspora and its love for the NBA. The collaborations are also supportive of the community with proceeds donated to various nonprofit groups. For the upcoming holiday season, the CCYAA will release a limited edition Bruce Lee Toronto Raptors capsule collection to celebrate Bruce Lee's global impact for the Asian community. Proceeds will be donated to the Bruce Lee Foundation and CCYAA. I'm wearing the shirt for people who are, I guess, listening on the podcast. It is, the Raptor shirt. It's got the Raptor claw. It's got the nunchucks. It's awesome. And I've had this, I think you handed it off to us like last week. And you said it's in embargo, so I can't wear this every single day. I've just kept it at the office of like I want to make sure that when the day comes, I'm able to wear it. So yeah, joining us to talk about this project are Clement Chu and Dennis Chang. Clem, we've had you on the show like a few times already, so people know you're Mr. CCYAA. Dennis, tell us about your role and your involvement here.
Yeah, so I am the managing partner of the Bruce Lee Family Companies and a board member of the Bruce Lee Foundation. And Clement and I met, what was it, like is that like
February?
A year ago?
Yeah.
Almost a year ago at a basketball game.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we were in the suite and we were just telling this story like on the way in here. But he tore his Achilles and we bonded over that because we both tore our Achilles playing hoops.
Wow.
And he was there with Simu and I was there with Shannon. And we just started talking about the community work that he's done here in Toronto. And kind of we kicked off that conversation. And decided to collaborate on this initiative, which we're really excited about.
Got you. Did you also get Clem's fancy doctors to rescue his Achilles?
No, I guess I didn't.
Well,
I tore mine 10
years
years ago.
ago.
Okay, I was trying to give him all the advice about
recovery.
Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
No, Clem's a pure hooper. It will be a shame if we don't see you back on the court, buddy.
Maybe we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will see. Okay. Tell me about the project. Where did the idea of the project come about? And why partner with the Raptors specifically?
Yeah, so I'll take this, but we had a conversation and they told us a little bit about what the Bruce Lee Foundation does. And one of the cool mantras about Bruce Lee as an entity is the fact that he wanted to teach people from outside the Asian community martial arts. And a lot of people are like, why would you do that? And he was like, this is an opportunity for me to bridge the gap between cultures for them to learn and embrace the things that we do. And similarly with CCYAA, like today I'm wearing this Boba Raptor sweatshirt. Mm-hmm. The really neat thing about it is that when we look at the sales data, like 25% of the people buying it, non-Asian last names. For us, that's a win because we look at it as people who are not from our community are embracing elements of our culture.
Right.
And then when we talked to the Bruce Lee Foundation, we're just like, this makes so much sense. We are working on all of this sort of content for Mitchell and Ennis, for the Raptors. Let's talk about how this can work, because Dennis can get into it, but Bruce Lee's had such a long legacy with basketball specifically, Kareem, Steph, and Kobe, but you can tell them a little bit about that. But that was the genesis of the thought process.
Okay. Actually, you know what? Take us through that legacy, because a young head like me, I might have missed out on a lot of the Bruce Lee generation and era, and so I'm catching up on it. Obviously, I've seen what he's done with Kareem, obviously in the movie, but just talk us about that specific connection between basketball and Bruce Lee.
Yeah, I guess it starts with Bruce wanted to teach martial arts to anyone who wanted to learn.
Yes.
And
that's the famous story of his first student was a black student who was into judo, and I think he recruited him. I think that was the inspiration behind Kareem's character, no?
Yeah, well, and so I think it's and he got a lot of flack for sort of breaking barriers, but not only he was an innovator from a martial arts perspective, but he really believed in this one family concept, which we'll kind of come back to. But this authentic relationship with a number of different communities really was born. And Kareem was a very close friend of his and a student. So he trained Kareem and obviously cast him in the famous film Game of Death. And sort of that community relationship within the urban community has just sort of continued to live on. We just celebrated the 50th anniversary of his passing. It's kind of crazy to think that he left this world too early 50 years ago, and the legacy lives on. And I would arguably say that it's stronger than it's ever been. But, specifically to talk about Kobe, for him, he's always been a big supporter, always showed up for us, and, showed up for a number of different documentaries to talk about how Bruce inspired him, his training, and really his philosophy. I think there are a lot of fans out there that are introduced to him through either martial arts or the movies. But we really believe and can see that it's the depth of his life philosophy that really has inspired millions and millions upon people across all different types of sectors and walks of life. But yeah, it's kind of an amazing, beautiful, authentic relationship, and it's very player driven. We get outreach through social media, from a number of different players, specifically with the NBA and other leagues too, about how Bruce has, inspired them, changed their life, from a life philosophy perspective, as well as training the mind and the body. And that's something, on behalf of the family that we continue to lean into to help influence future generations to come.
Yeah. You mentioned Steph too. What's the connection to Steph Curry, and sort of what are the collaborations that have
it was pretty awesome. Like, I was introduced to Steph's team, shout out to Stoney, through a mutual friend.
Okay.
And we just started talking about, how could we kind of kick off a collaboration. We're big fans of Steph. And the first opportunity kind of organically came about where in preparation for the launch of Curry brand, creatively they wanted to pay homage to, game changers that kind of came before Steph. And so they came out with this creative concept, around the spot and then changing the game for good. And he really wanted to highlight Bruce and his impact and how that influenced him and himself. So that was pretty exciting. A couple of years ago, we launched that spot. And then, I was telling some of the guys as we were walking in, there was the Atlanta shootings at the spas, and Steph's team reached out to us, and Steph wanted to make like a gesture for his next game playing Atlanta. And they came up with this idea, which we loved, which essentially was to have an image of Bruce and his family designed and painted onto his game shoes that had Bruce's famous quote, under, one family, essentially under the stars, we're all one family. And he wore those in the game, and then we auctioned them off, and all the proceeds went to all of the families. And it was really important from Shannon's perspective that all of the families equally who were impacted by the tragedy, shared in the proceeds for that auction. And that's kind of, the next step of the evolution of our partnership with Steph and Curry brand. And, we just launched on Bruce's birthday on the 27th, the first of a few different drops with Steph and Curry brand, which we're super excited about.
Man, that's awesome. Clement, I want to ask you and take the conversation here because, you've been around the Raptors since day one. I've read prehistoric. But no, I mean, you've been around the Raptors since day one, and I think one thing that stuck out to me with the Raptors is there is not just the basketball portion, but there's the cultural, there is the community outreach portion of the Raptors, something you've been really, involved in over the years. Can you explain to us like what that urge is? Who pushes that drive forward, and sort of like how can sort of the Raptors sort of push these connections and sort of unite people in this cultural way under basketball?
Yeah, I mean, they started originally because that was the market segment they were going after. Hockey audience is set.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you go after for new audiences? You go after new Canadians and you go after youth. And we're like, hey, that's us. So we started working with them on a very grassroots level in the early stages, but kind of where we've evolved to now, where basketball is just so popular across all of these different cultural groups, is that it's the community that's really driving sort of this representation right now. And that's why you see that the Raptors are always sort of front runners when it comes to community diversity. And, they're doing a lot of stuff with NAV. They're doing a lot of stuff with a lot of different communities. But one of these opportunities came out is that Mitch and us is like, you can help to create, some of these ideas that represent your community. And I think the first one that we got to do was we did a Chinese hoodie that was dedicated to Damon Stoudemire because he was like our day one draft pick. And it was super successful. And it was crazy because even people like Damon himself, got one and was representing for us. Samuel L. Jackson, via our friend Elaine Kwan, was representing one for us. And so we just kind of took it to the next level with Boba Raptor, and that just really hit it off. And so for this opportunity, again, we just saw that natural synergy that Dennis was talking about in terms of Bruce Lee, and just really excited to be able to bring the brands together because it beyond the meaning, it's just cool. Like the most coveted sneaker, like you were saying, it's the Kobe Grinches and the Kobe Bruce Lees. Like Caitlin Clark's wearing them in the championship game of the NCAA women's game. And, every player is wearing the stuff and repping for this stuff. So we just said that this is a great opportunity for us to work with Dennis's team and Shannon as well. And we're just really excited about that.
Yeah, no, again, like it's incredibly exciting that you can go and purchase a shirt that says Raptors with a Bruce Lee collaboration on it, man. Like it's a dope shirt, but it's also going towards a great cause, as you guys talked about. Okay, so I actually wanted to get into bigger discussion about Bruce Lee because, as I mentioned earlier, I feel like I missed the boat just a little bit. If to make a basketball analogy, Bruce is like it's like an MJ kind of scenario. He's Jordan. And I've
MJ,
always
we're MJ guys.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, there you go. So I'm more like the Jackie Chan is my Kobe, like he like copied a lot of the ideas.
Not quite the same thing.
Incorporated, some of the things, but very much like also very great in his own right. Obviously, I respect him a lot. But so I need you guys to sort of explain to me, like, why is there such a long lasting cultural legacy around Bruce Lee that still endures to this day?
How much time do we have?
we actually have 7 minutes, so that's actually I think not bad.
Yeah, it's interesting, because I think trying to see how deep I go with this conversation, but he was an amazing person. Okay. I think it's kind of like in many ways, whether it's from film or martial arts or on a deeper level, philosophy, he was an innovator. And I think for Asian Americans as well, in terms of that representation discussion, he was not only a hero to Asians, but like to lots of different cultures in terms of just seeing someone do the things that he did on screen. It was like almost superhuman.
Yeah.
And that legacy just continued to live on and on and on. But it's like I mentioned before, whether it's from a martial arts perspective and creating Jeet Kune Do, which is his own martial art, and being sort of an innovator and sort of encompassing all different styles to kind of create a new one. there are people who practice martial arts, every day, or begin to practice martial arts that are introduced to him every day. So the legacy also continues to live on from that perspective. But as I mentioned before, what I think has elevated his relevance to date, and in the future is really the philosophy, the life philosophy. He really was an innovator and inspires so many people just through just the mind, really. Shannon always loves to say is that her father trained his mind just as much, if not more, than he trained his body. And when people see the image of Bruce Lee, who left us too early, it's just this, image of just strength, power, speed, like, just intensity. And but really it's the sort of depth in the mind that really, I think, inspires so many people today, which is really kind of from a foundation perspective, which is our nonprofit, the Bruce Lee Foundation, how we're trying to really give back and help like underserved youth in a variety of different communities. And it is through our our youth programming, which really uses Bruce's mind, body, and spirit philosophy and programming to help youth address mental health issues. And so that's really something that we're passionate about.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the way I kind of look at it beyond that is that to take it to its most simplistic and base level is that me growing up, when I looked at who was in Western mainstream media and their portrayals as Asian males, not something I necessarily aspired to, but Bruce was the only one that I would see on TV. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool, right? And I think that kind of trailblazing is something that is important for, at least for the CCYA, and not just for men, not just for women, but, that sort of cross-the-board representation of having these positive portrayals, positive role modeling. We see how important that stuff is, and that's why it's so important that we work with people like Jeremy Lin and Simu Liu and stuff like that, because I think that really helps to shape the self-confidence of young people who see someone that look like them being portrayed in this positive light. And that wasn't something that was seen back then. Yeah. And I think that's such a strong thing for our community.
Yeah. I mean, that's especially, I think, from that time, representation was so limited. I think even something like right now, like we're in a more progressive place, but also I think a lot of people have made that kind of change possible. Like even look at us right now. Like, this is not something you would have seen unless I guess you turn on Omni News. But okay, I was going to try to pivot into a conversation about the mythical nature of Bruce Lee, because I feel like there's so much, as you mentioned, with the mind. Part of that is our appreciation of him as a figure is like appreciating the myth almost, and sort of like imagining sort of who he would be in this kind of context. Right. And, if that's even possible with celebrities nowadays or anybody nowadays, because we know every detail of everyone's life. Like in preparation to this interview, I was reading about Bruce, and I was delighted to hear that he grew up like taking dance lessons and how that sort of shaped.
Cha-Cha champion.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, that little bit of detail. Like nowadays we would have just seen it on like Pop Based or something. You would have just seen every little detail, or like even I didn't know about his like, coming from mixed heritage, and I looked more into that, and it kind of spoke to like the colonial history of Hong Kong, and it was like so fascinating. But we don't have the time for that because two things. Number one, Alex is putting the rundown. When can me and Alex play in the CCYA Celebrity Classic? He had this in bold and in highlighter. So, Clem, just give us a quick yes, and we can move on to the second line.
Is this something you try out for?
Well, the easiest part that I've agreed is I always shift this question to Jeremy and Simu. So you guys can definitely chat to them about it.
Yeah, it's not going to happen then. And then the next one is just, so the note in here is that the merch is actually sold out right now on the Real Sports website. So you can actually get the Raptors Bruce Lee collaboration on CCYAA.org. And of course, the proceeds will go to both the charities of CCYAA and also the Bruce Lee Foundation. So this is a dope conversation. I wish we had a little bit more time. Maybe in a different context, we can talk about those higher level things. But I want to say, appreciate both of you. And sorry I missed the event last night. I had to watch Raptors-Nets. Just kidding. Love watching Raptors-Nets. Okay, we're going to take a break. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, William Liu, and we are going to pivot away from the Raptors once again because Raptors-Nets was such a disappointing game. And we're going to talk about the rest of the NBA. So this NBA Insider is presented by Coors Light. Go from full-time to game-time. Coors Light, made to chill. We're going to bring in Marc Stein, who I understand is a flu game for Marc Stein. What's going on? Flu game, Marc Stein.
Yeah, I need to apologize in advance. There will be coughing. Hopefully that is all you guys hear. Hasn't been a pretty few days at the Steinline HQ, but I had a feeling that after last night's news in Dallas that you guys would probably still want to keep this date. So I figured, you know what? I better just suck it up and hope, like I said, hopefully it won't be disastrous.
Well, listen, Mark, we appreciate you, but I feel like the Mavericks don't I feel like Mark Cuban doesn't appreciate you enough. I mean, he could have waited until you got better to move off his majority share of the team. So the news that people didn't see it come down yesterday, big news, but Mark Cuban, who's obviously been one of the NBA's most vocal, most prominent, most active, most featured team owners, is actually moving off of his majority share of the Mavericks, selling it to the Adelson family at a $3.5 billion valuation. He is still going to retain basketball operations control.
Unbelievable move, by the way, to sell the majority stake, but like, hey, I'm still in charge.
Oh, yeah. No, he gets to do all the fun stuff without having to fund it itself. But obviously, Mark, you are as plugged into the Mavericks as just about anybody. Tell us about why he's doing this and sort of any details of the sale that you have right now.
Well, you guys just said it. If the deal is as described and as it's been described, that yes, he will sell a majority share but retain operational control over the basketball endeavors of the Mavericks, then you can understand it, because he's going to make a substantial amount in the billions. The purchase price of the Mavericks. I was a Mavericks beat writer, much younger and much skinnier when Cuban bought the team, January 4th, 2000. The purchase price was $285 million. So, again, this deal still needs league approval, but it's, a billion, an infusion of cash in the billions for Mark Cuban. And if the deal is as described and he gets to retain the ability to basically operate the team as he has, and everything I've heard to this point is that that's the way this deal will be done, then, I mean, it's a tremendous deal for him, because I think at this point in his life, he turned 65 in July. I reported on a piece on my Substack earlier this afternoon that, in recent years, he really has only wanted to be part of the basketball side of things. Cynthia Marshall, the Mavericks CEO, she completely runs the business side at this point. So, I mean, that's something he's already stepped away from. And, he's been very vocal. His dream scenario is to build a new arena that's embedded in a casino resort. Now, a couple key factors you need to know there. The Mavs lease at their current arena downtown at the American Airlines Center doesn't even expire until 2031. And there's also the small matter of gambling is not legal currently in the state of Texas. So those are legitimate obstacles. But here's the first cough. Apologies for that. Cuban has been very vocal that this is, his dream is building, getting a new building built with, in conjunction with a casino. And, in December, he told the Dallas Morning News, he told my longtime colleague, Brad Townsend, he specifically said he wants to do that with the Las Vegas Sands Corporation. So we kind of got a preview of this without realizing it when Cuban revealed that last December. But look, saying everything I've said, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way in faraway Toronto, like Cuban has been so tied to the Mavericks that you never imagined that he would ever sell 1%. Like he just, he has treated this franchise like family and sometimes like more than family, and that nothing is more important in life than your Mavs fandom. So the thought of him not being in charge and not having majority control of the team, it's really hard to process that.
Yeah, and it seems like a good deal from the outside. You mentioned the purchase price versus the valuation now. It works out to about 11 or 12% annual rate of return. Don't think he was making that when he invested in Avion Tequila with Turtle and the other Entourage guys. He had a run on Entourage where he was an investor in their stuff. Probably not a 11% annual rate of return. You mentioned, you used to be a Mavericks beat writer, Mark, and I'm curious, this is a chapter in the Mark Cuban and Dallas Mavericks story, not the end. So I don't mean this in a look back at the end kind of way, but over the years, how has Mark Cuban been to deal with? He's obviously this kind of outsized figure around the NBA. He's probably the most recognizable and prominent owner in terms of in the media and things like that. From your standpoint, first as a beat reporter and then at the national level, what is it like to cover and deal with a personality that is that large in addition to being incredibly wealthy?
Well, when I was the beat writer way back when this all started, it was completely groundbreaking. He was the Charles Barkley of owners. There had never been an owner like him. And as the Mavericks beat writer, my beat basically became the Mark Cuban beat. And you have to realize that's a team that had Dirk Nowitzki, Michael Finley, and a Canadian I know this show is fond of named Steve Nash, who in Cuban's first full season, they won 50 games. They hadn't been to the playoffs for a decade. And then they went on a string. I mean, this was a good team, a very good team, but Cuban just was so boisterous. He got in trouble so often at the beginning. Every time that I ever saw David Stern, I would have to, what we like to call in the business, a sidle, sidle him. It's a Seinfeld term, from if Seinfeld fans who've watched, the Seidler episode, to try to get near Stern away from the press pack after he got off the podium to try to ask him, because I didn't want to ask in front of the whole masses because then everybody's got the same quote. But Cuban was in trouble in those days. Every time I saw David Stern, I had to ask him for some sort of Cuban comment because he was just so, he was so outspoken and so determined to, do it his way and not just accept the norms of NBA ownership that were just, there before him and, that everybody was expected to follow. And, so in those days it was completely different. But in the grand scheme of things, obviously, there's been times that, I was not his favorite reporter. There's been times we've been at odds, but I mean, he is the most accessible owner I have ever seen. And, from a media perspective, I mean, how can you not, that's obviously what you want, that you want someone who will always take your questions. I mean, you can't really ask for much more than that. And so obviously there's been a lot of ups and downs, controversies, all kinds of things. But, in my experience covering the league, he's been as accessible an owner as there is. And I know that there are some teams around the league that the fans never get to hear from the owner and feel like the owner is completely detached and unreachable. And so, I'm guessing for fans, it's probably better this way. But, there's obviously been times that the fans in Dallas have not been happy with him. And let's face it, I mean, the Mavericks, this is what, 12 years since the championship. So, but I mean, the guy loves this team just to a ridiculous degree. And that's why, again, this is stunning. And we need to learn more about the deal to properly analyze it. But I mean, the thought of him that's the thing is like, it's hard to imagine him like if he wasn't there. So, everything we're told, the Adelsons put out a statement today that this is a partnership with Mark Cuban. So, let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, that's a $1 billion partnership. It does sound kind of nice. No, I think you're absolutely right because, whether you want an owner to go on First Take and like, diss Skip Bayless, or if you like necessarily want Mark Cuban to put out, I believe it was an audit of the 2006 playoffs.
The officiating one?
Officiating, because Dwayne Wade shot too many free throws or whatever. Whether you want some of these things, I mean, like, I think the passion that he brought towards that project, it was genuine. It's something that obviously he's going to keep going with it with the Mavericks. He's still going to be in control, but like, that is something where it's like, okay, if you could pick some kind of ideal person to run your franchise, you would ideally want them to be as invested. I think it's something a little bit similar to Steve Ballmer now, with the Clippers. Although I guess Steve isn't doing as much media as Mark does. But I guess the speculation is that I don't know. People are speculating a presidential run. Like,
you need $2 billion for that.
Do you know anything about this? Is that what's happening here? Or?
Please tell me my beloved Raptor show with the most beautiful set in NBA radio in the beautiful city of Toronto. Please tell me you guys aren't believing that. Please tell me.
Good. As you know, you have to ask the question as the media. That's all. You just have to ask the question.
And I'll tell you, my theory on this is, and again, hold on a second. Apologies. My theory on this is, it's been painted in a lot of circles like Monday, Cuban announces he's off Shark Tank. Tuesday, sells team. Wednesday, he's going to. I mean, no.
Yeah.
He actually announced the Shark Tank thing before Thanksgiving. He said it on All the Smoke with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson 2 days before Thanksgiving. And I don't know why it just didn't get any traction till Monday. And then obviously Tuesday, the sales stuff emerges, and it looks like this coordinated, connected thing, and it's just not. But no, he's not running for president.
Yeah, well, that's I guess that's good to know. Blake, you want to ask about the in-season tournament?
Yeah, we can pivot off of that, I suppose. The Mavericks are not going to the in-season tournament quarterfinals as much as
I have to confess before you guys go, like, I saw nothing last night.
Oh, that's okay. I'm not going to ask you, Rockets ATO questions
so
here.
So, yeah.
Mostly I want to know. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just going to say, broad IST questions, I will do my best. But specifics from last night, I did not see a dribble given all the sale chaos going on.
No, I mean, mostly my curiosity in terms of your take and what you're hearing from people around the league. And we set this up when you came on the show as well, what the league was expecting, what their goals were. It comes down to last night. 5 Eastern Conference games started the exact same time, and 4 of them are relevant, not just to the outcome, but point differential. We saw point differential be a big thing in the West Coast games as well. So now we have it. We have the field set. We have an idea of what it's going to look like next week in Vegas on neutral site. I guess, one, do you think it's been a success so far? I personally feel like it has been. Yesterday was a lot of fun. Maybe you feel differently. And then also, do you have a thought on point differential as a tiebreaker? Because it does seem that small element seems to have rubbed some players and teams the wrong way.
Well, look, I think we've discussed it.
We may have lost them.
Mark.
His phone line dropped.
Well, we're going to work to try to get Mark back on the line. But if not, that was our NBA Insider presented by Coors Light. Go from full-time to game time. Coors Light, made to chill. Difficult scenario for Marc Stein. I appreciate him for calling in.
Yeah. And if we can't reconnect to it, we got 13 minutes out of him on a flu game day. I think he gave us plenty. For anyone who doesn't know, by the way, the in-season tournament field is set. We know what that is going to look like next week. It will be the Knicks at the Bucks, the Celtics at the Pacers. The biggest loss of last night, the Raptors incapable of knocking the Celtics out of the in-season tournament. The Suns at the Lakers, the Pelicans at the Kings. So not a ton of surprise here. The 8 teams involved are 8 teams that have their eyes on at least the playoffs. Maybe the tippy-top contenders aren't all there, but these are no bad team snuck through. Yes, I think the team that's probably most excited by it is a team like the Pacers that's had such a fun start to the year that maybe doesn't have a realistic shot to make a deep run into the playoffs just yet, but this could be their thing. I guess the Knicks might care too. I don't know how delusional they are about their playoff chances or not, though.
Yeah, I'm happy because you did get a nice little mix, right? It's not just like only the top teams have gone through. Like you do have some like Cinderella stories. I think that's part of like every championship kind of this kind of tournament run is you do need a little bit of that element. I to me it was great because obviously after doing Raptors Nets coverage and then doing the reaction podcast, unfortunately I missed some of the elements of Heat versus Bucks, which was a really exciting one. But I did get to see Sacramento ultimately pull off a 24-point comeback against the Warriors, and we do have Marc Stein back on the line. Mark, we appreciate you. We're just talking about there was a game last night, and of course you were very busy chasing down this Maverick story, where the Kings came back and finally beat the Warriors. Obviously, that's a big thing because the Kings lost to the Warriors last year in the playoffs. But I don't know. Watching the Warriors, it's just so shaky to me. There's a lot of like indecisive moments, and then I thought about, well, what's Clay's future in all of this? And Mark, now that we have you back on the line, do you have anything there in terms of just like what is Clay's specific future in Golden State? Because you would hate to see them break up, but I mean, I don't know if Mark Cuban can move off some shares of the Mavericks, maybe other players can also change teams.
I mean, that's a good point. I mean, the fact that Mark Cuban would be willing to relinquish majority control of the team, that definitely is a anything is possible kind of thing. But I'm still not there when it comes to Klay Thompson not being a Warrior. I just cannot picture it. I don't spend the amount of time around that team that I used to. Mm-hmm. But, the first 3 years of their dynasty run, I lived with that team. When I was still at ESPN working, I was basically SportsCenter's embedded correspondent with the Warriors, and just watched that team grow up and covered the subsequent championships, and just Draymond was always the guy that other teams around the league, not the War, you wouldn't hear this within the Warriors, but other teams around the league. I think there was a thought from other teams, Draymond might want to see what it's like to go be a Laker, or, people would throw out Dallas. People would say, oh, he wants to go back to Michigan and be a Pistons. But that was from the outside. Draymond himself would always say, this is the group I want to ride out with the guys I rode in with. And look, I can't sit here and tell you that I know how they're going to resolve a contract stalemate, because obviously they're not close on a contract extension. But I just are the Warriors going to trade Klay Thompson? I can't see it.
It would be tough.
They won 4 championships in 8-9 years. This doesn't happen every day, and that does create a different situation. It's easy to sit there and say, just break it up, but that's not how it works in real life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It would be such a shame, because I do wonder if this is still holding over the Warriors in terms of this extension, and whether they get that done or not. And who knows, they can go into free agency, they can also do that as well. But does this hold up the Warriors from potentially making other moves? Because again, it's a big factor here, and I think the Warriors do need other moves if they're going to be not just like competitive, but like if they really want to win championships, which obviously this is what this whole group is all about.
I also just think that, the way they're playing right now, they're not like a one move away team anyway. So
okay. Right,
obviously
fair.
the Klay situation is a significant question, but I don't think I think it's broader than that.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like the idea of Klay leaving is like, well, remember, like, can you even picture Tony Parker in a Charlotte uniform? It happened.
Oh,
it was the
weird.
1 year someone of the
weird.
Parker, Ginobili, Duncan trio played somewhere else.
Yes.
It happened. I don't have any memory of it. I don't care to remember it. Yeah. But it's a weird one. I guess at least Klay is playing a little bit better of late. Mark, before we let you go here, how much of this? Obviously, it's a matter of what is the right number for Klay, but how much of this kind of caution with the next Klay deal is baked into the new CBA and what we're going to see happen to teams like the Warriors, who are so far extended into the tax?
Yeah, and look, this new CBA, the Warriors and the Clippers and the Nets, they were all at the top of that, or at least the way the Nets were previously constructed. like, you got to get your 2 stars right in this new CBA, and every financial decision is tough. So there's no question that that's a factor here. But I don't know. Maybe I mean, you bring up the Tony Parker example, which is a great one. And, Tony Parker would probably say, listen, Michael Jordan was my basketball hero. He was Charlotte's owner at that time.
Okay.
That's why Parker, that was a big reason why Parker was willing to go to the Hornets for a year. But, I've never asked him. I'd love to ask Tony if I get the chance, like, are you glad you did that? Or do you wish you would have just never left the Spurs? So it's just when you've achieved so much as a team, it's not common. I mean, I think even there, you guys tell me, but even after only one championship, look at my impression from afar is that every Raptor who was a part of that championship team, when it comes time to, like, are they going to stay or go, like, look how wrenching that is. And that was one championship, not, not 4 in 9 years or 5 in 20 years.
Yeah. It was definitely gut-wrenching. Obviously, Kawhi leaving was, something that you kind of, in the back of my mind, you knew, but you had hoped in your heart that he would stay, and obviously he didn't ultimately decide to stay. But even something like Kyle Lowry moving on, like, that was the way that season went on, and obviously it was cut short. Raptors had to relocate to Tampa, and he kind of said his goodbyes from there, which would made it even more difficult. But it was like, the organization, and they treat players in a different way when you go through those moments. Like, Raptors gave Kyle the ultimate way to walk off, which is like, you know what? If we're not just going to trade you because you're in an expiring contract to any place that you don't want to go, we're going to make sure we work together on this so that, yes, you can get to the place you want to get to. Yes, we can maybe take care of what we need to get back. But ultimately, you're too important to our franchise to just walk off willy-nilly. And, like, not to say that all players aren't equal, but, depending on the circumstances of what you achieve in that franchise. Like, yeah.
And really that's a guy who came to Toronto. We're talking about 3 homegrown guys in Golden State. There are only 51 guys in the history of the NBA to spend their whole career with one team and last more than 10 years. And 3 of them are on the Warriors.
And I want that to be the case going forward. But, Mark,
that's a good list. Can you send me the whole list? That's a good one.
I will.
I need that list.
All right. Watch. It's going to be in the next newsletter. All right, Stein. We appreciate you, okay? Hopefully you get better, man.
So, sorry that we lost connection. I promise we will get back in the in-season tournament next time, and I will. I'm sure my thoughts will disappoint and dismay you, but I don't want to be the buzzkill. If people like it, I want them to like it.
Yeah, sorry. What we need to do is have a team qualify on away goals. I think away points should be the differential here. No, you're a big soccer fan. But
well, I don't know how else ties would be broken at this point if it wasn't point differential because, this group stage is. Yeah. Don't get me started.
Gotcha. Well, don't worry. Next time we'll bring you on. We'll ask you.
Ignore the old man. Ignore the old man and enjoy the basketball.
No, we're gonna ask you the Steve Nash story next time. Okay, we're gonna let Mark go, and I think Blake, because the thing for me is just. Like I was saying, like after watching the Raptors game last night, finishing coverage, it just kind of flowed perfectly into watching Warriors Kings. And when I turned it on, the Warriors were just like flowing offensively. Everything was looking good. Fortunately, Chris Paul left the game due to injury. Who knows? I mean, he's older, so you never know when he's going to be available. They look good. They were up like 24 points. They were flowing. And then the Kings just started making this comeback. And every time I watch Raptors play and then I watch a different team play, I'm just like, I can't believe it's the same sport. There's no way you transition Raptors-Nets to then pivoting to watching Warriors Kings and think it's the same sport because it's just guys flying down the court. It's spacing at every position. Sasha Vezenkov, EuroLeague MVP, the king of not dribbling the ball and still being a very effective player. I mean, talk about a 0.5 offense. He'd be a 0.5 offense type of guy, bombing away from 3, making a huge comeback, finishing small, and ultimately the Kings got over the top and then they ran out of momentum a little bit, but they still came back and Malik Monk hit the game winner over the Warriors to qualify the Kings for the NCAA tournament. That's to me, I was just like that restored my faith in basketball.
I honestly, I think that's not
so much, man.
Yeah, I think that's maybe not specific to the to the tournament here, though. I think that's just you watching a capable offense once a week to remind you what it's supposed to look like.
Oh, I'm down so bad.
It's not even that the Raptors offense has been so rough in the half court, and the numbers certainly say it's continued to be rough. It's that because they're a pretty good defense, they also gum up the other team side. So you're getting two sides of iffy offense when you sit down with the Raptors.
Yeah. I referenced this on the React pod yesterday, but Masai's quote at the end of the year last year was,
I did not enjoy
watching this team play. Yeah, I need that on a quote graphic. I can definitely get a lot of use out of it. But we're going to take a quick break. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. When we come back, we will talk more around the NBA with Alex Wong. Welcome back to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wim Liu. Joining me for the fourth and final segment are my two co-hosts, Blake Murphy, Alex Wong. Alex, we are going to go around the NBA, but I think first there's going to be another prehistoric event.
Yeah, I just wanted to let the folks know I'll be In Vintage We Trust in Parkdale this Saturday from 3 to 6 p.m. 1580 Queen Street West. The folks there, Josh and Chantel, doing exclusive vintage Raptors merch drop. They've got a cool set of J-League, Japanese League soccer jerseys that'll be available. So hardcover copies of Prehistoric will be available there for purchase, or if you want to bring a copy, you haven't been able to come to the other 7 events to get signed, I'll be there from 3 to 6 p.m.
It's a great book.
And they're also doing an in-store raffle for a 1-of-1 95-96 Raptors nesting doll set.
What?
So you have to come in store and enter a raffle. If you buy a book, you might get some extra raffle tickets. If you bring your book, you might get some extra raffle tickets. If you wear vintage Raptors gear to the store, you might get some extra raffle tickets. But I'll be there 3 to 6 p.m. in Vintage We Trust this Saturday. And just want everyone to know Prehistoric has gone to a second print. Paperback edition is available for pre-order on Amazon now, scheduled to ship on December 12th. So, yeah, buy that for yourselves and for your Raptors friends and family for Christmas if you celebrate. That's it, man. Tap me back out.
Great no, you're running point for around the NBA.
Oh, okay.
No, I mean
around the NBA,
it'll be
boys.
exciting. It really will be. What counts as vintage Raptor gear? Because a man like me, my oldest Raptor gear is a fake DeMar DeRozan jersey that a friend bought me.
First of all, you're not showing up to a vintage store of that ilk in a fake jersey, okay?
Why not?
Josh legit messaged me this morning and was like, "Hey, who is Will? Who is Will's? Yes, he said, who is Will's favorite Liverpool player?"
Yeah,
and I was like, I think it's Steven Gerrard.
Yeah,
because he's gonna
do not play the clip.
Out comes Mignolet, but Barr punishes of all people Steven Gerrard. It's a terrific moment for Chelsea, but an awful one for the Liverpool skipper.
I guess if you're an Everton supporter, that's all you can support these days.
Somehow it's the longest clip, and it's so enjoyable to see your pain.
I knew it was coming
every time.
Man, damn it.
Anyways, he's gonna pull out some exclusive Liverpool stuff for you.
Got you.
On Saturday. But yeah, that's it, man. Around the NBA, what are we talking about, boys?
Yeah. Well, what do we have around the NBA? So obviously,
all right. I got a couple small updates off the top here before we get into some NBA topics. So we read out the in-season tournament matchups a little earlier. If you missed it, it's Knicks at Bucks, Celtics at Pacers, Suns at Lakers, Pelicans at Kings. And some of you have been asking, well, what the heck happens with the Raptors? There's a 10-day gap in the schedule between Knicks games. We now know what those games will be. The Raptors are going to host Miami on Wednesday. So not the best of breaks. So you got a pretty tough opponent as far as non-qualifying teams go. But on Friday, you go and visit the Charlotte Hornets without LaMelo Ball. And I have chosen to lead the segment with this piece of news. One, because people were asking about it. But two, because the reports yesterday were that LaMelo Ball is going to miss a pretty significant amount of time with a bad ankle sprain. And I wanted to ask you guys, we just had a lot of fun joking about the 3-14 Wizards beating the 2-15 Detroit Pistons. The Charlotte Hornets are 5-11 with a worse score margin differential than either of those teams. And they just lost the only capable basketball player on that team. My question for you guys, are the Hornets now as bad as the Pistons and Wizards now that LaMelo Ball's out?
This is difficult because you remember at the end of last season when the Raptors went to Charlotte and played like back-to-back games there, or maybe it was a home and home, maybe one was in Toronto?
I have Men in Blacked that from the memory.
You guys don't remember Fred's 2020 game?
2020 vision against Bryce McGowan?
Did a podcast with CJ Miles and Amit in between the two games in Charlotte?
That was what happened last year. You're right.
Yeah.
The Raptors show last year, it might have been darker.
Wow, am I the only one locked in on the Raptors?
No,
holy.
I mean, it's hard to say anyone's worse than the Pistons. I think the stats are out there now, but for the last half season, essentially, they're like 4-40.
Yeah, I mentioned when the Raptors had beat them and given them an 11-game losing streak. That was their third 11-game losing streak of the calendar year.
That's insane. And I think the Detroit Lions have more wins.
Amazing stat, especially given how the Lions have a long history of being awful, and now they're winning more games than
hat tip Joseph Kashar on that. I think.
Wow.
Tigers are on the rise too.
Tigers are on the rise.
They're going to be maybe not the Magic this year, but the AL Central's so bad that the Tigers are going to be the
Magic of the MLB.
I'm still going with the Pistons.
The Pistons are clearly worse to me.
Really? I was going to say they were more promising. I mean, they still have Cade Cunningham. I know people are down on Cade Cunningham. They're going to sort out this glut of guys that aren't working out for them. I think they just need to figure out what are the 2-3 guys that they're rolling with. Asar Thompson has been really impressive, off the top. So if you take him, you take Cade, maybe you still believe in Jaden Ivey. That's 3 guys right there. Maybe you build around. There's still a core there. I know they're terrible right now. But if you're looking at the
Duran's pretty encouraging.
Yeah, so
he's
if you
very young.
And then if you look at the Hornets roster, which 3 are you rolling with if LaMelo Ball is not there? Brandon Miller?
Brandon Miller for sure.
Okay, but can you get to 3?
I feel like their average players are better. They have a lot of wings that can kind of do some things, whereas I think Detroit is just stuck in having 5 centers.
No, you know what this is over the years, the Hornets have been bad enough that Will Lou has looked at the Hornets roster of hey, who could the Raptors pluck a capable wing who can knock down a 3 from?
That's what we did last year with Jalen McDaniels.
Malik Monk before that. I'm sure you've talked yourself into PJ Washington at one point. Not exactly a wing, more of a forward. Mark Williams has some very low key I could have drafted him if you hadn't have done. Yeah, I know everyone does the Walker Kessler of it, but sure. Hey, Mark Williams, I guess he went 15th that year, but you could have theoretically moved up to get him. He's a guy that, he looks capable there. But this is a team that is going to be led offensively by Terry Rozier, if he's even healthy.
Oh my God, scary hours.
Yeah, Scarence Terrence.
Terrence. I'm taking the Pistons over the Hornets, guys. I don't know,
man. LaMelo's also making this jump right now, which has been really.
Shouts
really
to
fun,
I'm pulling up the Hornets Raptors box score from that 2 home games last year.
Oh, can we do a little
Can you
quiz?
name me
The 7 rotation players?
Can you name me the 5 starters?
Oh my God!
In that first game, I'll kick it off.
Absolutely not.
I'll kick it off with Theo Melodone, which is I believe what was prescribed to me earlier this year from my doctor.
Yeah, that's a SSRI and a 2-way guard.
Yeah. Can you guys name the other 4?
JT Thor.
Oh yeah, we got a Thor.
Yeah,
we got a Thor.
No, for sure, Svi was on the Hornets at that point.
Dropped 26 points.
He was the go-to scorer. I'm not even kidding.
10 of 17, 5 of 9 from 3, and now we need. You already named one of these other
Bryce
guys.
McGowan's.
Yes,
Mark Williams.
Yes, and Mark Williams.
Okay,
so there we go.
Okay.
Kai
Wow,
Jones?
look at the continuity on this roster.
Wait, who came off the bench?
James Bouknight.
Oh, Bouknight.
Kai Jones, currently not in the NBA.
Kobe Simmons, I think, because he's with the 905 now. So I'm I am very familiar with Kobe Simmons.
He played a minute and 38 seconds.
Amazing. That might have been his last NBA game.
What you know about Xavier Sneed? Yeah.
Okay,
15 minutes there.
15.
He played 15
whole minutes.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways.
That Xavier Sneed is like a Lord of the Rings bad guy or something like that.
Oh, man.
They got a Thor.
You got Deagle.
They got a Sneed.
I got to look up now if that was Kobe Simmons' last game. That was the game the 905 saw and said, got to have him.
Kobe Simmons is such a good NBA name.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
It was not. He played 2 more games after that. He played both the Raptors games and then 1 game against Houston.
Kobe Simmons, what I'm going to call Ben Simmons when he scores 20 points one time.
The first time he hits a jump shot?
Oh, God. Did you guys already talk Warriors Kings with Stein?
Very briefly.
We talked some Warriors Kings.
But can we get into it a little bit more
Here's the
here?
thing. I saw you tweeting a lot about Sasha Vezenkov. So give me your thoughts on Sasha.
That's my new Furkan Korkmaz. Vezenkov, man.
And up against my version of it, Podzemski.
Oh, yeah, Pods?
Yeah.
Shout out to Pods. No, Vezenkov there in that 4th quarter run. You know, he was a gamer, man, and I wasn't familiar with his game. I actually went on his Wikipedia, realized he was like a EuroLeague MVP.
Yep.
The credentials are like incredible.
Yeah, it was supposed to be a big get when he came over.
And I always, I think maybe you guys do this too when I'm watching other teams try to project it back to the Raptors. And I'm like, oh my God, look at this Kings team and the firepower and the guys they're able to bring off the bench. Like, and look at the way that they're playing, like just the togetherness of it and just the entertainment value of it.
Oh, it's just fun to watch.
When is the last time the Raptors have brought us like that level of fun and entertainment? Like,
I mean, their fun factor comes when they dig 20-point holes against bad teams and then come back.
That's not fun.
Those have been the most fun games of the Raptors season.
This is what you guys have said. It's raising rent to find out what your hustle is all about. And that's not fun.
That's actually all of Toronto. So in that case, the Raptors really do.
Again,
I saw like a headline
right here.
I saw a headline the other day that like rent rates were down in Toronto. And I clicked it. It's like, yeah, they're down like $5 a month on average after like a 5-year stretch where they increased by like $1,000.
Homeowner over here. So
maybe Toronto's just overrated in general.
I mean, on the Warrior side, like they're under 500 now.
Yeah, they've dropped 7 or 9 or 8 or 10 now.
And I don't know, like they're just a team that looks to me like they're at the tail end.
They look desperate
of this era.
They look desperate.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Draymond is like always doing something with the referee to the point where it's like every game you expect him to get it.
He basically begged for that tech last night.
It's not working anymore. I saw Trey Lyles draw at least 6 foul shots off him last night in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
If Trey Lyles is out gaming you in a game like this, like I don't know, maybe your time has passed.
And here's what that tells you: Team USA, you don't bring Draymond to the Olympics. Trey Lyles is ready to rack up those free throws for Team Canada.
That's right.
Yo, honestly,
big win by Jordy Fernandez last night too with the Kings.
Yeah, and I mean, guys like Klay Thompson, we know what prime Klay Thompson looks like.
He's pressing, bro.
Now, he at least has 20
in
plus
2019 against the Raptors. Yeah, that was terrifying.
And like Klay has 20 plus in 3 of the last 4 games now, so it's like the best 4-game stretch he's had. But even last night, like I remember, so I didn't check into this game until the second half because the Raptors were on. Yeah. And I look at the box score at halftime, and Wiggins and Klay have combined for 35 points on like 19 field goal attempts. I'm like, holy cow, this is the first good Wiggins game, the first good Klay game they've gotten. They got them at the same time. The Kings are toast. And like I started like kind of like half jokingly be like, oh, leads down to 2 when they were up 14 because they had to win by 12 to make it on in the in-season tournament.
Which made it really fun.
And then the Kings were just like, no, we're going to come back that amount and then just run you off the floor. And I think Klay scored 1 point or 2 points in the second half.
Yeah.
And Wiggins finished with 29, so he saw an okay game. But like the fact that I was like excited that Klay and Wiggins had contributed in the same night, and then they still didn't win is like a bad sign about. And I know they didn't have Chris Paul for most of this game because he got hurt in the first quarter. But
it's so funny every time I see Chris Paul in the Warriors, though. Still,
well, they were panning to him in the back. Like, he was still giving instructions to them, like at the end of the third quarter. I think the in-season tournament aspect of it is interesting because I think I heard Candace Parker talk about this post game because with 2 minutes left, the Warriors were still up by like 4 or 5 points. And like you could see, like Steph was actively like hunting threes to I think beat that to get to 11 points. Right,
they need to win by 12.
Yeah, they need to win by 12.
Yes,
and she was like, "Oh, that might have hurt them because they were hunting those threes."
You lose the game. There was Samson and I were talking about this yesterday. There was an instance in soccer not that long ago. I think it was the Barbados team scored on their own net because they needed to force overtime because overtime, like they needed differential that they could only get by going to an extra frame. Right. Do you get what I'm saying? Like you're up 1, you need to win by 2.
Yeah. So they got to go to OT to get that deficit.
Kick it in your own net to force overtime. In this case, the Warriors are shooting early in the clock.
Yep.
Doing things they're not eating 20 seconds of clock and taking a safe shot. They're actually trying to add points to this, and then the Kings are like, all right, we'll just run with this and win the actual basketball game.
But there's an actual game to win, though.
This is I think this is part of what the league wants long term is to introduce these type of difficult decisions where like, even if like say you're on a back-to-back, right? Like say last night had mattered for the Raptors and this is a bad example because the Raptors aren't the type of team to rest someone on a back-to-back right now. But say it had mattered, right? And you're looking ahead and tonight is the Suns. The Suns are a much more difficult game than the Nets, so you'd want all your guys available for the Suns. It's a tougher game you got to win. But last night counts for the in-season tournament, and you maybe have a berth in the in-season tournament on the line. I think that's what the league wants long-term is like teams to have to make those decisions and prioritize the in-season tournament. And yes, that implicitly says like, oh, that regular season game the next day isn't as important. But I think they'll take that if it means people like Steph are shooting for an in-season tournament berth down to the wire up 8 or 9 points.
This is why we need Granger's idea of separating the two.
Yeah.
Like, just play the tournament and then play the season. Or play the season, take a break,
But
play the tournament, and then play the season
I
again.
kind of like these kind of side effects that
I
are,
think
that are
the
coming out
league
of
likes
it.
the side effects.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think the side effects are cool. And it got me thinking, too, like, obviously the last 2 rounds, the semifinals and the finals is going to be in Vegas.
Yeah.
I actually think they got to think about, like, I know there's probably benefits to doing it at a neutral site. But man, imagine like a final in-season tournament finals game in Sacramento. Like you can't duplicate that in a Vegas
lighting the beam and money shoots out of it for all the players.
Because the neutral site, the crowd's not gonna be as engaged like this, man.
No,
Well,
it's interesting,
well,
right?
hopefully you get traveling fans.
But it's not won't be the same as like being in that team's home arena. Though.
Like you can get like there are a lot of summer league games that have good crowds, but it's more of like cheering on the individual player or like a close game or whatever. But like I do wonder if like Vegas is just the right spot for that. Like the UFC runs all their biggest events out of Vegas, and like there aren't that many fighters from Vegas, but the crowds are still crazy, right? If you give them a good fight and a good story and things like that, I think that's probably what the league's hoping for. But yeah, I'm curious, like, is it a sellout?
Yeah. What's
there
the crowd gonna be? Is it gonna be like a Super Bowl type? You know what I mean? It's like they're
where
just
it's
there.
like some traveling fans from each team, and then some people were just like, "No, I'm going to the Super Bowl. I don't care who's in it."
But shouts to a friend of the program, Adam Silver, man. You really cooked with this one because like I'm so excited. Like you look at a matchup like Celtics Pacers.
Yep.
Like that's a marquee matchup because like
and a potential first round playoff matchup.
Yeah, I want the Celtics to flop again in another tournament. And I want to see like if a team like the Pacers, even the Knicks, can like make a run, right?
Yeah,
it's gonna be so fun, man.
I'm still workshopping in the first in-season tournament game. I tried to tweet like there are 82 game players and there are 4 game in-season tournament players. But it's like now it's like a 4 game in-season tournament regular season and a 3 game in-season tournament playoffs.
Yeah,
it's gonna get clunky.
Did you guys talk about Joe Mazzulla with the hack of Drummond?
No.
Last night?
No, we didn't. We talked about the Raptors going hack a clack a little bit with Nick Claxton, but
let's make it a goal for the next 8 minutes not to talk about the Raptors.
Is that when you try to beat
well,
a
we got to do
disease?
between the lines.
Oh my God.
Between the lines can do it. We can do it 350. We got a little bit of time.
That's clap, not clap.
Okay, so let's get to this one topic and we'll do it between the lines. Like, does anybody care about the in-season tournament more than Joe Mazzulla, guys? Because this man is locked in. He hacked Drummond last night. I think they were up like 20-plus points, but there was like a point differential thing going on. And then Billy Donovan walked to center court because he was upset and Mazzulla had to explain it to him. Are we taking Joe Mazzulla's side on this in terms of how serious he was taking the in-season tournament?
No, listen, I think that's what the rule is going to be, right? In this instance, I think he needed to win by like a landslide. And so even though it was already a landslide, they need to make sure. I do think that Joe Mazzulla just doesn't really seem like he cares that much about the gamesmanship.
He's got a little
like
Daryl Morey in him where it's just it's just all about the final result.
I'm going to do whatever. And it doesn't matter about your feelings. You know? So
DeMar just the victim.
No, Blake, you literally asked me this yesterday.
Yeah.
You're like, who might like get upset?
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you this too. Of all the teams, and this was to set up last night, but let's play it back. Like, what team do you think would be the biggest babies about something like that, getting the score run up on them for point differential purposes?
I feel like the Warriors would be definitely one of them. I could definitely see Draymond going on the
maybe Sixers, Embiid and Nick Nurse taking a little issue.
The Warriors complaining yesterday, hey, you had already got under an 11-point margin. You didn't have to run up the score and win the game, too. That's unfair. You were already going to the in-season tournament.
Maybe LeBron. I don't know. Maybe LeBron and the Lakers if they get the score run up on. So they just lost by 44.
This is another fascinating thing I find, though, in this in-season tournament. So now that, like, LeBron, obviously, he's a good enough steward of the game that he said, like, yeah, the money matters, like 500K is 500K, we'll care about it, we're competitors and stuff like that. But now that he's here, given what we know about LeBron, like changing his tune quickly and stuff and caring about his legacy, like if the Lakers win the very first in-season tournament and LeBron wins it at this age, playing this well,
legacy, man.
LeBron is going to frame this as like it is the most important thing you could do in basketball. It is the winning the very first in-season tournament is the most historic thing you could possibly do.
So he can get Spotify Premium and actually look at his Spotify Wrapped.
LeBron not even look at his Wrapped is tough, man. By the way, thanks everyone for sending in the Raptor show as their top Wrapped.
Yeah, thank you to all these regular civilians out there.
No, but seriously,
thanks to all the people who only tagged you guys and not me and them too.
Oh, that's tough. It's okay, man. JSOC Plus.
But that one shares a feed with Jay's Talk postgame. So I'm still sharing I'm sharing ats with Blair and Barker
No,
on that one
they
too.
tagging Show Ali on
Yeah.
that.
Oh man.
All right, is there a game tonight, boys? What's going on, man?
There is.
All right, let's do
so it is time now for Between the Lines, brought to you by Bet Rivers. Take a chance. The Raptors are hosting the Phoenix Suns. They are 3-point underdogs, Will. The over-under is set at 226.5. Some background here. The Suns have won 7 in a row. They have had 2 days off, maybe suffering from that Toronto flu. They've been in Toronto a little bit now. Kevin Durant ran into my friend Paul at the Four Seasons yesterday, so they've been, getting their feet under them in Toronto here.
Wait, I need more details on your friend.
They're just
Paul.
apparently staying at the Four Seasons. My friend Paul texted me. He's like, "Is there an NBA team in town? What hotel do they stay at?" And I was like, "Well, usually this one. I don't want to give it away on air, but like usually this one. But sometimes this one or that one." He's like, "Oh, I don't know who it was, but I think there are NBA players here." I was like, "Was it Kevin Durant?" And he was like, "Yeah, it was. I thought it was him, but I didn't think he played for the Suns." So this is obviously not a basketball fan friend.
Oh, brother.
But yeah, Paul's like getting a massage next to Kevin Durant at the Four Seasons.
Yo.
No, they showing feet.
Yeah, probably. So Suns have won 7 in a row. They've had a little bit of time to chill here. Kevin Durant, though, with a foot thing, is questionable.
He's questionable
for tonight.
He's
Grayson Allen also questionable with an illness, probably from looking at KD's injured feet. Bradley Beal still out. Damian Lee, Nasir Little also remain out. The Raptors have it clear, other than Christian Koloko and the two-ways. Grady Dick back with the Raptors.
KD might not play tonight.
KD's questionable. There was,
what am I
as
doing
of
there?
the 3:30 update, there's still he's still
I'm gonna
questionable.
go say hi to Utah, and that's it. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, look, the Suns are on a roll. The Raptors are pretty disappointing recently.
The Raptors are not.
The Raptors
Don't
have
sugarcoat it, my brother.
The Raptors have at least kept it close down the stretch.
Oh, lowered
guys.
expectations, my brother?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've kept it close down the stretch,
Okay.
so I understand the line here.
They're still in it. Yeah.
I believe the Suns got into town yesterday. And I don't know. It's difficult. Even their game against the Knicks, it had to come down to a Devin Booker wild buzzer beater where he insisted that was a good shot. I mean, it was just a sick shot. The more difficult the shot is, I think, is actually adding to the impressive nature of it. Look, OG has done a good job guarding Devin Booker in the past, and hopefully that continues. Of course, that's going to require a lot of help. But if Kevin Durant is not available, this is definitely one where I would wait to see what his status is before making a decision on something like this. If he's available, obviously I would take the Suns. The Raptors have not had an answer for KD pretty much ever.
Yeah, go back to the double overtime logo winner over Amir Johnson back in the day.
John Salmons, we have still not forgiven you for that one.
Talking fish.
we are
By the way,
talking
for
fish,
context, so KD has missed
He
2 games in a
filleted
row,
us.
and Bradley Beal's obviously out.
Yeah.
They destroyed the Grizzlies a couple days ago.
I mean, whatever.
And then
Who
last
hasn't?
game, they also didn't have Grayson Allen, and they narrowly beat the Knicks on the road. So this is a team that's hung in pretty well, even without KD.
Yeah, they got a lot of 3-point shooters. Eric Gordon is shooting them from 40 feet out, it feels like now. Eric Gordon's just like, I'm too old for this, man. I'm not driving this
We're
ball.
going to call him Smiley.
yeah, he over the top with the way he's shooting those top threes. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, I would wait until see if KD's available. If he's not available, I'd actually favor the Raptors. But
He is
it's hard to
shooting.
pick the Raptors right now.
KD is shooting 52 on tray ball. So
That's about to be OD tonight.
Yeah, you got to. It's all the way down to 52.2% now from 54 earlier. Sorry, Chet.
Well, that's our advice. So
all right, that was Between the Lines, brought to you by Bet Rivers. Take a chance. I really hope Kevin Durant plays.
I hope so too.
As
a
much
fan.
as I don't want to talk about a Toronto Raptors loss again tomorrow. Like, there are only so many KD games left that we're gonna get, right? Like, he's into his mid to late 30s
and now he's in the West. We only get to see him here once a year.
Yeah, he hasn't lost in Toronto in 5 years.
I guess winning the championship was in Oakland, which was a great memory. Man, remember that team we had, 2019?
Also,
doing that
he
again?
only played in one of those
Basketball IQ on that
games,
team.
and
Well, that one game was difficult, but I contend that the Raptors were still close in that game, even with KD available.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's ancient history. Can't always talk about having Kyle, Danny, Kawhi, Pascal, Mark, Serge,
Jeremy Lin,
Norm, sure, Jeremy Lin as well.
Jody Meeks,
Fred,
Eric Moreland,
yeah, what a time that was. But we have no more time today.
Jeremy
so.
Castleberry.
That does it for us today. I've been your host, Will Lou. You've been listening to The Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Thanks once again to Clement Chu, Dennis Chang, Marc Stein, producer and co-host Alex Wong, Blake Murphy, board producer Derek Brandale, Frank Braska, David Sis, Jeremy Anatad. We'll talk to you tomorrow.